So we can get going. Good evening. I'm Nancy Copperman, President of Wilco NIPSOC. Glad to have everyone join us again. This evening we have a very special speaker, as well as a very jam-packed business update, I guess I'll call it. So without further ado, I'll move it on. It's always that first slide. There we go. Goes to sleep. So for those of you who've been following the Michael Eason saga, third time is a charm. I actually got his name right. And I double checked it with Ashley. So I think I got it nailed down this time. I can't wait to meet him because I don't think he's probably too happy with me, but I definitely know how to sign his name and how it's spelled. So we will be next month at Georgetown Parks and Recreation community room. So just remember that. We have in December our holiday party and silent auction. We're always looking for items or experiences to auction off. So if you have some things that you think might be interesting for us to auction off, this is kind of one of our little fundraising. It's a very interesting evening. We just have a short business meeting to approve or present to you actually our spending plan. And after that, we have light refreshments and desserts and things of that nature. So it's a nice evening. So if you're available, please come and stop by here. We have Native Seed Libraries by Craig Bruska. This is very interesting. This is a gentleman who's really promoting seed libraries across Texas. That's his goal, that every library has a seed library. And then new and exciting, and I want to really do a shout out to Susie Hickman. We're actually going to have an author present. She'll be presenting remotely, but she has written a book, The Tree Collector's Tales of Arboreal Obsession, and it's a bestseller. It's actually, I was in Barnes and Noble's in New Jersey, and they had that on the new book table. So I thought that was kind of interesting. This was also a recommendation for one of our members, Gay Kriegel, who had suggested this. So the point to this is that if you see someone or hear someone, they say something, well, send it to us, and we can try to get them on our program. And then on March 13th, our very own Tyson Bartlett will be speaking, and we've kind of thought about doing something different. And this was kind of the brainstorm of Ann Adams, our secretary, was like, how do we kind of, do something different, engage the membership so that we kind of shake it up a bit. So what we're going to do on this day is we're going to have a little social hour and meetings. So the time will be we'll start a little bit earlier, but we'll end pretty much at the same time. And we're going to just kind of have a little bit of networking, connect to people who you may just either, hear about, or, if you're Zooming, you may see them remotely, but this is a good chance to kind of connect. It's in the spring, so it'll be a bit lighter. And the other thing we're going to do is kind of highlight the different committees and things that we do on the committees, so that if you're interested in learning, we'll have the different chairs and board members there. So I think it'll be a very nice evening. We are going to have food. Food is always a draw. So it'll be a fun evening. So this is something new to do. So we'll see how it goes. Upcoming field trips, October 19th is Palmetto State Park. We haven't had rain, so I doubt that we will need a rain day. It'd be great if we did, but it is what it is. The one thing that the field trip committee has asked me to convey to you is that they would like you to register. So how do you register? You go to our website, and under field trips, you'll see this field trip, and when you click on it, there'll be a link for you to register. So that was the request that came from the committee. We have a couple of other field trips each month, and the annual New Year's Field Day trip right now will be on. It's just TBD as to where and what time. So for those of you that want to start the new year right, this is always a nice way to do it. Our full plant sale, the in-person sale is Saturday, November 2nd. The information is there that we're starting at 11 o'clock and we're ending at 2. We've changed locations for those of you who haven't been to the meetings or zoomed in before. It's not where we normally have it. It's a new location. We're very excited about that. Plant list updates will be forthcoming, so just keep an ear and eye out for your blog postings or check the website. And the other thing that's very exciting is that we can have pop-up food trucks in Austin. Well, we're going to have a pop-up plant sale, and that's going to occur on October 13th through October 16th. So this is a limited engagement. It's 12 species of Texas native plants in 5-gallon pots. All of them will be $40. And this is a quote from Beth Irwin, our wrangler here, is that the list is short, but all are excellent species for Williamson County landscapes. So there'll be some, interesting plants on that. And you can find the plant list if you go to our website. I think it's up, Gary, right? Yeah, it just kind of, went up. So you can kind of peruse it so that if you want to jump in at 12:01, we changed it. So now you don't have to kind of watch late movies and late night to try to stay up to 12:01 a.m. So now we're doing it p.m. So it's a little bit easier. You can sleep in and then, kind of hit in. So that's up there now if you want to look at it and kind of plan your strategy, and then you can go in, and it's as we normally do it. You look at it and then you purchase online, and then plants are picked up at the in-person sale on the 2nd. And as always, if you don't come to pick it up, it gets donated to the Round Rock High School Plant Club. So if for some reason you can't, at least you know it's going to a good cause. Upcoming projects, I just want to thank, first of all, everybody who volunteered for the HEB NPSOT Texas Parks and Wildlife Initiative. We had tremendous response. We're doing 2 stores. Will be Wednesday the 16th, and then the following Saturday, the 19th. We will be in 2 stores, one Wolf Lakes on University HEB and the other one in the Hutto HEB by 1:30. And we have volunteers that have been scheduled. And I want another shout out to Nancy Pumphrey, who organized all of this. And so that's what's coming up. So if you're in the area on, I believe it's like 11 to 2-ish. That will be there. So if you're in the area and you want to stop by, we will be giving out special native seed packets that were picked in conjunction, I would say, with NPSOT and Native Seed and Texas Park and Wildlife as part of their Prairies and Wildflower initiative. And we're going to have Pocket Prairie Mix. So if you go to Native Seed and you look at Pocket Prairie Mix, you'll see what's in there. It's pretty much every single wildflower and grass you can imagine in a little packet. So it's part of what they are doing to promote their initiative. So if you can, stop by and, say hello and show support. Now, the next new project that we have is actually an ongoing project, which is a little bit unusual for things that we've done. But we're going to start at the Williamson County Landfill Pollinator Garden with monthly work days. So the first one is going to be Sunday, the 20th. And then it'll be the 3rd Sunday of every month. And then, if we don't need to go, then that'll be announced. But this way, it'll be kind of a regular work day. It'll be 8:30 in the morning till 11:30. And at the Williamson County Landfill, I put kind of where it is right here, if you're kind of wondering where it is and you haven't done it. Don't worry about signing up. If you can't come for the whole time, that's fine. Just, bring these particular items of what you have here. And also just to kind of so who manages this or who started this? I put in a little blurb so that you see that this pollinator garden is a partnership with several of organizations that share kind of the same values and mission. So that's it. And actually, in addition to our, surprise pop-up, we actually have a surprise request. So I'm going to call up Jessica Woods to kind of, I guess, put out her request. And by the way, Nancy Pumphrey suggested that we ask Jessica, because Nancy is always asking for volunteers. So she felt that, now when everyone sees her, they run the other way. So we're introducing someone else to do the ask for Nancy.
And I didn't know I was going to do that. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have worn a hat and tried to fix my hair a little bit before coming up here. But hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Woods. I work for the City of Round Rock, and I'm coming to ask for volunteers to work on a new City of Round Rock project, in conjunction with Master Naturalists and the Native Plant Society. I work at the water utility. We're trying to transform our landscape there at our office building. It's a 4-year-old building now. Most of the landscape has died over the years or frozen or not been watered enough to drought, and it just looks terrible. We're trying to revitalize that, turn it all into native beds and make it a demonstration area. I was gonna say I can get off in the weeds here, but that's exactly what you're gonna be doing, is weeding if you wanna come over to this building and help. I'm modeling it after a little bit of this landscape. The landfill project, where if you can come on planning work days Friday mornings, I can send you the address and all that information if you're interested. But Friday mornings in Round Rock, North Round Rock, I'm thinking 8 to 10 o'clock in the morning. And just note, it is an office building where people are at work. So just know that it's not like a deserted place. But because it is an office building, there is plenty of parking there. There are restroom facilities, there are water fountain facilities, and all that kind of good stuff too. But you can reach out to me if you're interested in this on the Native Plant Society contact page, and just put in City of Round Rock or CORR project, and they can send your information to me if you are interested. One final note, I said Friday mornings. I'm thinking of starting this not tomorrow, but the next Friday, whatever that, it's the 20th or the 18th.
Should be
18th, something like that.
18.
8 o'clock in the morning. Again, you don't have to come for the whole time. You can show up a little bit late, but we would really appreciate your help and your knowledge, because we do have some native plants on the site. We don't want those ripped out. We just want the junk ripped out.
And you can use the contact form if you're looking to kind of get there next week or so, on the 18th, but we'll put something on the blog more formally. This was kind of a pop-up request. So. Free plants for this meeting to in-person attendees. This is the bonus of when you come in person. So we have Big Mully and Skeleton Leaf Goldeneye. 2 very different plants. We usually don't have too many grasses, so we thought we'd switch it up and have our muleys here. So, and then our skeleton leaf goldeneye. And this is really a low, extremely drought tolerant plant. I know people are, constantly looking for items like this. So this is in the back. So please, on your way out, take that as well. The in-person attendee tonight, another benefit of coming in person, will win landscaping native plants of Texas. So we've given out our raffles, and we will see who wins that at the end of the meeting. This is where we are if you need to find us. And always take note of where we're going to be, so that you don't wind up zooming from the library while we're at the Parks and Recreation Building, or we're at Round Rock. So just take note. So we're going to be switching over to our virtual speaker. Okay, Mayor Gilmore is an Arizona native who's been a Texas transplant since 2001. His service to the community stretches back to working on boards and commissions in 2004 until he was elected to city council in 2011 and became mayor in 2021. He married his college sweetheart and has 3 recent college graduate children, and can't pass up watching a good Star Trek episode. TJ is always looking out for ways to leave the community better than how we found it. And he loves plants, and he loves how plants bring people together, even though he has a black thumb. So without further ado, we're going to switch you over to TJ Gilmore.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to have some time for questions at the end of this, but what I thought I'd do tonight is take you through kind of my side of the conversation. Now, if any of you are heading down to the Texas Master Naturalists here in a couple of weeks, I will be presenting this with an expanded bit of information from our friends at the University of North Texas. They can get much more into the scientific details and some more of the work that they did. But tonight we're going to talk about this desert kid that ended up in Texas and ended up being the mayor of, for those of you who maybe don't know, Lewisville is just north of DFW Airport. We are a population of 137,000, so that makes us about the 28th largest city in Texas. And if we were transplanted back to my home state of Arizona, we'd be about the 10th largest city in Arizona. But let me just give you a little bit of background of where I grew up and what that looked like. So this is where I grew up. It's Yuma, Arizona. If you've ever been there, this is what it looks like. About 50 weeks out of the year, 48 weeks out of the year. But this is also what it looks like. Those couple of weeks a year, right after we've gotten some great rain. You have to be a real fan of shades of brown to survive in Arizona. Now, unlike Texas, Texas weather tends to try to kill us on a semi-regular basis. But instead, it's more the flora and fauna in Arizona that come after us. Although when we get into places like Big Bend, I start to feel really at home. So this is kind of the background that I'm coming from. Now, as an Arizona guy growing up out there, one of the biggest challenges, and I'm sure for folks in this space, you all understand this and are probably more aware of it than the general population. But water is kind of a big deal. People are coming, at least to North Texas. My county, Denton County, is getting 90 new people a day. North Texas is on track to have 200,000 people moving into the DFW area every year for the next 20 years. None of those people are bringing roads, housing, water, none of that. So when we talk about water in Texas, I just did a quick Google search. And as you can see on this slide, just kind of, if you look closely, the left column is water problems in Arizona. And that came up with about 8,500 results in a quarter of a second. Water problems in Texas, I have about 15,000 results in that same amount of time. For those of us who follow this, we're already running out of water. Arizona has neighborhoods that no longer get water. They have to buy water from California and have it shipped in. Now, these are quite affluent neighborhoods, typically in the foothills of Scottsdale and Tempe, but it's absolutely happening. These folks are getting storage trucks full of water shipped into them because they're part of an extraterritorial jurisdiction where the city has said, you know what, we're not going to expand into that neighborhood because we cannot provide the water resources. Texas is dealing with that currently, and hopefully, I think we do a pretty good job as a state of water planning, but there's definitely some issues with NIMBYism, and there's just general issues of we're growing faster than we can build it. So when you talk about Lewisville, you can see here we're bisected, trisected, quadrisected by several major freeways, state roads. So we've got 35E, we've got 121 and Business 121 going that kind of east to west corridor. But we're roughly 43 square miles. Thankfully, we have the Lewisville Lake Dam. And you can see there that our green centerpiece, that a lot of that green down through the middle is because that is floodway or spillway off of the lake. So it really can't be built. So what we chose to do as a city, as we started building our 2025 plan, and that 2025 plan actually is a program that we put together for the city back in 2011 to basically say, what do we want to be when we're 100 years old? Because next year is our centennial. So as you can see here, our goal was to really lean into what our residents were saying is, we want to emphasize the green, we want to emphasize the park space. And so we decided we were really going to lean into that. And how do we get that green native property out into the built component of the city? So what we've done over the last several years is we've partnered. And folks, none of this works without great partnerships. And I want to just make a quick comment. I thought it was awesome that you had somebody from the city there asking for your help and your input, because the city is trying to model the behavior that they want to see in the residents. And I'm going to tell you about that dynamic here in a little bit, but it's a very important one. So, of course, we had our city staff. I had to get buy-in from many of our staff. We had to get the Native Plant Society of Texas to spend some time with us, which they have graciously done. The Lewisville Lake Environmental Learning Area, LELA, if you've ever been up to North Texas, you probably have seen LELA if you've been wearing your naturalist hat. If not, you need to come on up here. I'll make sure you get some great barbecue, and you can come check out what is an amazing green space and protected area that allows us to recreate the Blackland prairies that no longer exist in this area, but that we are a part of. Our school district has been highly involved in the process, as they are one of the leaseholders on the property for LELA and the south side of the lake there. Of course, we've had great success with UNT and their infrastructure team. They've been spending a lot of time. They have an amazing public policy division that a lot of these, I'll call them kids now because they're much younger than I am, are into figuring out how to make cities more sustainable. So that's part of the conversation. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, of course, because they manage the lake. And then, of course, our Texas Master Naturalists from the Elm Fork chapter and our local Keep Lewisville Beautiful. These are all part of the team over the last 13 years that have been slowly working to generate what we've been able to create. Now, when I became mayor in 21, I got to sign a letter, and this letter was about monarch butterflies. And it was the Mayor's Monarch Challenge. Some of you may know about it, some of you may not. But it's a program where you make a commitment to, help the monarchs. And I thought, that's an easy one to sign, right? I mean, who doesn't love a monarch butterfly? Who doesn't know that they are one of those keystone species that's just beautiful? And when you protect them, you protect a lot of other stuff. But as mayor, I just felt, okay, so I'll sign this. It's a feel good. I don't hit them with my car. That's kind of a good thing, right? Yeah, folks, I really was green at this. And folks would show me and tell me, the important thing about, not only the monarchs, but we also have a tremendous amount of bird flyways through Lewisville as well. So, as we do throughout all of Texas. But, people would show me the map and I'm like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. And our logo's a purple martin. How could you go wrong with this? And what I never really considered, though, was that pledging to save monarchs really meant something a little bit more. It meant that we were effectively building a Buc-ee's for butterflies. And what do I mean by that? I mean a pit stop, a place for them to rest and replenish, just like Buc-ee's on our freeways. Now, I have not asked Buc-ee's for permission. I hope they feel positive about this, but this is how I think about what we are doing for any of us who are refortifying those native habitats that were so prevalent in Texas and are so depleted today. So when we talk about building a Buc-ee's for butterflies, and by the way, that's a Buc-ee's for birds and all sorts of other stuff. Let's talk about municipal facilities, because that's the thing that us as elected officials probably have the most influence over, is what do we want our city to look like, and our city facilities specifically. So, for example, we have a 10-acre park. You can see in this top right-hand corner, there's this circular walkway, walking path, and you can just kind of catch a building. That is our municipal recreation center. But back in the fracking boom, back in 2009, 2008, we really fought back against that. But there were a couple places that we couldn't stop fracking from happening. One of them happened to be this 10-acre lot of green space that you're seeing here. And what happened is that particular well site went dry. They couldn't get anything out of it. So we took the money that we got paid, that the city got paid to allow it to happen, which we really had to do because the state laws were such that we couldn't get around it. But we literally took the fracking money and bought this 10 acres of land and converted it back into nature, to a natural space. It was originally designated to be residential. But this allowed us to take a lot of the activities that we're doing at the Lewisville Lake Environmental Learning Area and bring them closer to the core of our residential neighborhoods so that they could see what the Blackland Prairie once looked like, and they could get a better idea of what it was that we were doing, and maybe, just maybe, get more engaged with our green spaces and with our master naturalists and with our Keep Lewisville Beautiful and all of our other organizations. So as you can see, they're slightly improved trails, but not all concrete all the way through there. We have some outdoor classroom spaces that are built in. And then of course we have a custom seed mix that we've gotten from our friends over at North American Seed. But the other piece, not just buying land and building it, which of course is a big piece, but the other piece is how do we incorporate native plantings into our public infrastructure? So as you can see here, this is our Old Town Lewisville. And when we built out the Complete Streets programs here, we included making sure that we had great drainage facilities that utilize native plants to clean the drainage before it actually went into the watershed. So as you can see here, we have a considerable amount of just really great. It's not a hell, what do they call it? A hell strip. It's actually a really great looking piece of infrastructure, green infrastructure that residents can take a look at. And we actually have little spikes and everything that show what the different plants are and whatnot. So residents can actually see it, or visitors, and go, hey, this might work in my yard. This might work in my city. And of course, I'm sure there's somebody in the room right now that can name off every plant that you see in these photos. So I've got Greg's blue mist flower, and that's about it for me, but I'm getting better at it. So I need you to brace yourself, because here's the thing. When you start pushing for this to get moved into more than just your city buildings, but into your medians, your right-of-ways, into people's yards, this is the challenge that us politicians are going to face if you decide to turn this up a notch. And it covers three areas. One, of course, is the politics of changing what's there to what used to be there. The next is educating people on what it is we're doing. And the third, of course, is having to take action and make sure we get it done. So here's what you get when you start turning up native plants in your medians, your right-of-ways, your public spaces. I understand the city wanted to have no-mow zones to show off the flowers. Problem is, those areas are 90% weeds and grass. Looks really, really bad. Need to mow. Thrive Rec Center, please mow your grass. Embarrassment. I want to know what's with the no-mow zone on Valley Ridge Boulevard in front of the Solea is a 55+ community and First Baptist Church. I've seen other spots that have flowers growing. Not here. It's a collection of weeds, tall, overgrown, ugly weeds. There's even smaller trees popping up. No-mow zone for what? Snakes and mice? And then, of course, this one. What did your council person say when you called? And that right there is the key, folks. What are your council people going to say when residents who aren't happy call? The path of least resistance tends to be the way, unless you've got somebody who, like me, understands the water implications of all of this, understands the sustainability implications of this. So there is a tremendous amount of education that comes. Remember, some of your council members grew up on a manicured golf course. Some of your council members grew up with front yards that were Bermuda grass. They have a particular way of viewing the world. They might live in a very fancy HOA that does not encourage native plants. So there's a lot of baggage that comes with the way people grew up and what their expectations are. We've heard about NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Well, this is part of it. Now, what's great about this is that you do occasionally get some residents that pipe up. A weed is simply a flower that someone decides is in the wrong place. Here's another person telling us, it takes about 3 years to establish. The first few years are not going to be pretty. I can't believe grown adults were crying over grass and flowers growing. This other one that you see over here is a little bit of sarcasm. Lewisville didn't learn anything about that unsightly varmint-infested mound and Flower Mound. For those of you who don't know, there's a town right next to us, the town of Flower Mound, and they have a piece of Blackland prairie that has never been plowed. It is original prairie. It was never farmed. It has always, as far as anybody can tell, it has always been raw prairie. And I will tell you, I got complaints from residents of that town whose entire town name is based on bringing back or the history of our prairies. And they have a linchpin public space about our prairies, and yet they didn't want to see prairies in my medians in Lewisville because they had to drive through and they thought it was unsightly. A little ironic, but it's the reality of what you're seeing when people are starting to drive through and they're starting to see the first year or two of these native plant programs that you may be looking to start in your city. So here you have somebody, somebody complaining, hey, they're going to file ordinance notices on individuals if they claim their lawn is a butterfly habitat. And this is where we get them. There's a program available for residents to participate. It's our Roots for Wings program. So whenever, because residents are going to do this, you will have folks that will say, hey, well, the city sure does lock me down when I have a front yard that looks scraggly. Well, you're going to have to make sure you have in place programs that manage that. So we have a program called Roots for Wings. You can hop on a City of Lewisville website and just search for Roots for Wings. But this is how we educate and get residents who want to have a lawn that looks like our native plants. We can do it. And we give a program that allows them to do that, to help them get there, and also to make sure that it isn't just somebody gaming the system who doesn't want to take care of their property. Because as we all know, native habitat requires stewardship. We need to make sure people are taking care of it and not just saying, hey, I didn't mow, it's butterfly habitat, right? So we have to work through that. But this is how we counter that particular argument, which is, hey, anybody can do this. You just have to go and get educated on how. You have to support your electeds to make this work, folks. You've got to increase your workshops and plant sales. I get it. Sometimes people don't come, or it's always the same folks, but our Roots for Wings program is a workshop. People have to come spend a half day learning how to plant natives and build a native garden or lawn before they can get certified. And then they do get certified by our code enforcement. So they can get a little sign to put in their yard and all that good stuff. We need individuals, not the city, but individuals promoting why these programs are great on social media. If the city's pitching it, well, of course the city's pitching it because they want it. Well, of course your elected officials are talking about it because they want it. But if residents want it, then that starts to change the conversation on social media. And I would love that we didn't have social media to complain about like this, but it's the nature of the beast. So that's probably the biggest megaphone we have to work with this. And then, help your city with education at city events. Help them, like they asked us earlier today, how can we get more natives into our facilities, and how do we clean it out? So that you got to show people what they need, what we're doing. Your city staff cannot carry this alone. Your city electeds cannot carry this alone, because if they get hammered by these, and I will tell you, these threads would pop up every 3 days because somebody wanted to stir the pot and they got some sort of emotional gratification out of saying that this was ugly, and then 200 people would pile on. But over time, these conversations like this one to the right, these no-mow zones have gotten out of hand. When's the city going to control this? Not only do they bring rodents, bugs, and weeds, but look what I have in my backyard. Feral longhorns. Also, I'm pretty sure this 7-year-old blackmouth cur and pit bull mix named Jessie is a stray too. For those of you not catching it, this was sarcasm. She was absolutely loving the native habitat that we had planted. And the opportunities that it gave for her and her kids and her dog to be out in nature and enjoy the pretty flowers and the grasses and the native habitat. So you get champions out there. We need you to build those champions, and you've got to do it through education. So we need data. That data needs to show economic benefits. It needs to talk about water and maintenance costs. It needs to talk about environmental impacts. It needs to talk about tourism and beautification. Folks, this state goes nuts in the springtime for bluebonnet pictures and going down to the hill country to take a look at all the vast acres of flowers. Well, if it's good in the spring, why can't it be good everywhere in Texas? Why can't it be good in my little city or yours? We know that there's a tourism component to this. We know that people love to go see Texas natives and Texas wildflowers. They just aren't used to seeing it in places where they're not used to seeing it. You got to sell them on it. So how do you do that? How do you help your elected officials make that conversation happen? I can get you a copy of this. I'll send a link to my slide deck so that you guys can have it. But you can probably have some of your city staff help with this as well. But you can look at 6 ecosystem services that provide monetary value. So these are stormwater reduction, carbon storage, sequestration, pollution and air quality, positive health effects. So you've got a lot of these that you can deal with. Energy savings and temperature regulation. And of course, one thing that I love, because I'm here in the grasslands, is that grasslands have the highest return on investment from all of these because they just don't cost that much. Do they cost? Yes. But they are not as expensive to create as a woodland would happen to be able to restore and recreate. So there are absolutely measurable economic benefits, but there are non-tangible benefits too. There's quality of life. There is better green spaces. Heck, there's just flowers and cool grasses and better ways to retain groundwater. Now, there are a couple of things that we did in Lewisville, and I want to give you kind of the first one. Once we kind of got the idea that, hey, we were going to do some sort of native prairie restoration, particularly in our large street medians, and creating some of these pit stops, if you will, we first came up with some funding. So we got city council to say, hey, you know what? We will set aside $150,000. We're going to partner with the University of North Texas's Environmental Research Institute. And that $150,000 is going to help us get plants, seeds, equipment, some materials, a couple of interns from the UNT program, some signage, and help us create outreach events. So all of those things played together in our first project to get things going. So what we did is pretty straightforward in phase 1. We set out a plan. Where are we going to go? What kind of plot treatment do we need? What kind of plant selection do we want to put there? So UNT helped us tremendously with this. So did our master naturalists. What we did then is we actually converted 19 acres. Once we had that plan, we converted 19 acres of medians into native Texas wildflower habitats. Once we did that, we had to assess how's it going. So as you can see here, we've got a density grid here, and they're taking reports on native flora and fauna that they're seeing within that grid. We had some befores and afters that I'll show you in a minute. And then we also practiced mowing strategies to help reduce costs. I'll tell you, the biggest complaint I had, aside from it being unsightly, was people saying that the medians with all of the new plant material were blocking people's sight lines. Folks, I drive a Miata. It is the shortest production vehicle in the country right now. And I will tell you that my eyesight level is basically everybody else's SUV front bumper. Okay. So I was able to talk to folks on that one pretty straightforward and tell them, look, I get it. Visibility is highly important to me because my car could get squished by everybody's SUV. We have set back our mowing strips about 10 feet from the curbs and 20 feet from the endpoints. So if you're crossing traffic, just for the sightline and visibility piece. So I was able to kind of shoot that one down personally. But again, you got to be able to address it and work with residents on sightlines and visibility. And then engage. You don't know how many people drove by and would see what's going on in the medians going, how does this work? What's going on? So we made sure to provide outreach, educate the community. We actually had events in the medians. One of our big roads here, I'll show you in a minute, actually has it's a electric line right of way, but it has a nice sidewalk running down the middle of it. So we would plunk some people down with a table and a 10x10 tarp, and off they would go and they'd talk to residents as they were walking their dogs and whatnot to let them know what was going on in the neighborhood. Worked really well. So as you can see here, just briefly, we had several plots that were planted in the spring of 23. We had 2 plots that were seeded in the fall of 22. And then we had 1 plot that we solarized in the summer of 23. And you can see there's this big spine on the left that's got the purple and green median conversions. That was fascinating because certain plots in there did really well. Others got a little scraggly and weedy. And so we were kind of testing what worked and what didn't as we went through all of that. We actually did this one with actual plants. We didn't do seeding. We did this little piece. It's actually not far from my home in 23, and put in a basically a median conversion that was little 3-inch, 5-inch pots of actual native plants all through there. Now, when we did the solarization, this got a lot of attention because here you are driving through a neighborhood and you're seeing all this black tarp as well as all the mulch that's there. We decided to do this because we wanted to see what it would do against invasive grass. For those of you who are familiar with solarization, it works really well. It basically nukes everything. It gets rid of literally every plant and insect. And it gives us some organic matter for new seeds, and I don't have to deal with chemicals. But as you can see here, it's not cheap. We did just over half an acre, and it cost us $5,700. So that was all the tarps, topsoil, all of that to get that half an acre done. And what we saw is that once we did that, we were able to get our native species up to 70%, pulling our invasives down, pulling our non-natives down. But you can see plant species recorded prior to the project, we had about 33. But then as we got up into after planting, you could see we got up to 142 different plants, and the vast majority of those, 70% of course, are native. So all of these different ways of reseeding or solarization, whatever the project was, we saw a massive increase in the native plants versus what was almost exclusively non-native and invasive grasses and whatnot within our medians. We also used iNaturalist, so we have a lot of folks up here in Lewisville that love this application. If you haven't played with it, but I'm preaching to the choir here, I think. We've got over 250 taxa, and you can see here where we were prior to October 15th, and with our baseline, you can see where that number, hits up in the 240s, 260s after we had planted natives. That's just year 1 of biodiversity growth. So even in something as small as a median, you can have a massive impact on the flora and fauna in your local neighborhoods and your community. Now, I'm not going to get too crazy in this one, but we use what's called urban median mix. This was actually developed unique for us, but now it's being sold in general. We're tweaking it as we go because every year we find that certain ones do really well in our soils and others don't. And so we're dropping stuff in and out. I think what was trying to remember it might have been the Texas yellow star. It was a Texas milkweed. I forget. I'm not seeing it here. But it's really tall. It gets up to 8-9 feet tall. That was one that really people did not care for. And so we had to find a way to kind of pull that one out just because it was so big and kind of really aggressive in size and got a lot of, it got picked out as kind of the weed, if you will. And if I picked the wrong name there, I'm sure somebody will correct me in the chat. But going back to solarizing, it's costly, difficult to do on a large scale. I would say really focus solarization down on, small spaces that you want to get a quick hit. Otherwise, tilling, seeding, and reseeding are going to get you a better bang for the buck. Plus, you don't have, all the plastic that you got to deal with, which is not great. So because of this, we actually created 2 new green spaces that residents actually popped into. So they started seeing what we were doing around the city and they said, hey, we can take our community improvement grants and we're going to create adopt a spot with more green space, and we're going to create another pocket park, and we're going to add more native plants to our pocket parks. And these were done. We basically had small city grants to help with this, but these were all done by our neighbors in these neighborhoods with some small assistance by our city municipal staff, which was awesome. Of course, here's the Garden Ridge and Valley Ridge Parkway. So these got a lot of attention this past year because this was their first and second years of growth. And so people were really taking a high notice of these areas. But again, these are great ways to get people's attention. And if your city's not sure of how far they want to go, just pick a small one. And then after a couple of years, pick another one. You don't have to do it all at once. We put these signs out along all of our medians so people knew, and they were both in English and Spanish. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew, hey, this is what's going on. We have more dense educational material located at our parks. You know, you're not going to read this driving by a median, but definitely the no-mow grow zones got a lot of attention, and people Googled and searched for those all over our social media. So it was a great impact. But again, don't just put these plants out without signage and information. Otherwise, people will get very confused, and again, they'll just keep firing up on the internet. You can see here, here's one of our Roots for Wings neighborhoods. We've got a couple of spaces where we've built these out, which we're really excited about, but you can see when a neighbor does it, suddenly more neighbors do it. If the city does it, that's one thing, but if you've got neighbors, as you guys know, once some neighbors start figuring it out, it starts to proliferate through the neighborhood, which is really great. Of course, on our website, we have mapping. So you can come to our city website and you can find all about our pollinator prairies is what we call them. But our Roots for Wings program is there, our hike and bike trails, but it's just part of our park's infrastructure at this point. We don't even, while it's singled out, we don't have to make it a huge deal because it's just, we treat it like infrastructure. And then a Native American seed, of course, has been, sorry, I said North American earlier, but Native American seed has been a great partner in all of this, as they are across the state. So I want to give them a shout out because they're doing great jobs for us and giving us a lot of the research that we need on the seed mixes to be able to continue this program. So our plan, a plan that's started up this year and is happening as we speak, we're starting to put this stuff in the ground. We're adding another 25 acres. We're going to keep monitoring and recording observations in our current locations, which are going into their second and third years. Really excited about year 3 for some of these spaces, which is great. And we're going to continue to host outreach events for our citizens to make sure that they know what to do. And of course, iNaturalist is a great program. It gets people, you know, with other like-minded folks. And in summary, I think we might be onto something here in Texas. As a kid from Arizona, when you get written up in Texas Monthly, that kind of means you are a Texan. And I get it. Things get scraggly and scruffy in Texas, but that's part of who Texas is. And if you want to wear the cowboy hat and the big buckle, you need to be able to embrace that scruffiness that happens in Texas and be able to be a promoter of the things that make Texas great. And I think native plants are one of those things. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your expertise, and I appreciate your championship of these types of programs. I'm going to go ahead and open things up to questions, and thank you so much.